QIP, Test 3, Anthropological Thought. Anthropological Thought. So, the topics in the exam of Test 3 we have Classical Evolutionism. The Saturday, the test you are going to have is on 6th unit, Classical Evolutionism, E.B. Taylor, Henry Morgan, James Fraser. Historical Particularism, Franz Boas. Diffusionism, British, German and American. Functionalism, it is Malnovisky. Structural Functionalism, it is R.C. Brown. Structuralism, it is Levi-Strauss and Edmund Leach. And Culture Personality School, Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, Ralph Linton, Cardinal and Cora Du Bois. New Evolutionism, Gordon Child, Leslie White, Stewart, Silence and Service. So these are the various schools. These are the various schools in anthropological thought. In anthropological thought. In overall view, if I want to put forward, so classical evolution means here they want to explain to the world that evolution happened in unilinear sequence. Savagery, barbarism and civilization in a unilinear sequence. If in the same way how the marriage evolved, it was group marriages, polygynandrous, then it is polygamy, then it is monogamy. In the same way when it is with respect to religion, it is animism, animatism, fetishism, polytheism and monotheism. In this way there is a unilinear sequence of evolution. Unilinear sequence of evolution. So classical evolutionist believes that there is unilinear sequence of evolution. It might be E.B. Taylor, it might be Henry Morgan, it might be James Fraser. Yes. So, classical evolutionism. Then historical particularism, Franz Boas. He wants to tell that every culture is because of history. Every culture is because of the history. And its environmental aspects, its environmental conditions and psychological aspects. So, Franz Boas wants to tell that every culture is because of its history, it's because of its environmental condition, it's because of its psychological aspects. The fusion of these three is culture, historical particularism. Every culture is because of its history, historical particularism. That you have to understand. So we should not compare one culture with another culture. Every culture is unique in its context. Every culture is unique in its context. Then we have diffusionism. British school of diffusionism, German school of diffusionism. British school of diffusionism, German school of diffusionism, American school of diffusionism. British school of diffusionism, they believe that Egypt is a center from where the culture got diffused. Whereas German school of diffusionism, they believe there are culture circles, culture crists, where the culture will originate until that particular point of time the culture get diffused. That is called a single culture, that is called as culture circle. Whereas American school of diffusionism, culture area. Similarities in cultures in different geographies is called as culture areas. Culture areas. So British school of diffusionism, American school of diffusionism and German school of diffusionism. You need to understand the basic difference between the German school of diffusionism and American school of diffusionism. Then functionalism, Malnovisky, everything. Culture is for the satisfaction of physical needs of the man. Culture is for the satisfaction of physical needs of the man. If the culture is not satisfying the needs of the man, if the culture is not satisfying the needs of the man, the culture will degenerate, the culture will die. That is what functionalism. Either it might be religion context, it might be kinship context, it might be economical context, it might be social change context. You want to tell only one thing. The needs of the man will be evolving. With respect to that, the culture will be evolving. So culture should satisfy these needs. If this culture is not satisfying the needs, the culture will come to an end. That is called as functionalism. Everything, whatever you learn from the functionalism, just you should have this motto in your brain. Everything in the context of satisfaction of the needs of the man. Everything in the context of satisfaction of the needs of the man. Structural functionalism by R.C. Brown. He wants to tell that. Yes, functions are important, structures are important, but the structures are most important. Like kinship. Kinship is a permanent structure. Kinship is a permanent structure. It's a corporation. Kinship is a corporation. Where cooperation will happen, social cooperation will happen, political cooperation will happen, economical cooperation will happen, cultural cooperation will happen, and which are permanent in nature is called as structures. Social structure is nothing but a technical word for society. If the people are performing its function or not, but the structure will exist. That is a major motto of the structuralism. If functions is there or not, but the structure will prevail. That is structural functionalism. Structuralism, Levi-Strauss and Edmund Leach. So the culture or the society, everything is present in the minds of the people. The person will be acting according to how it is fixed in the minds of the people is structuralism. So structures are present in the minds of the people. In the same way, Edmund Leach also tells that conflict is a part of structure. Inconsistent with the values. Inconsistent with the values means conflict with the values. So conflicts with the values is present in every society, for which he studied two societies, Kachin and Shan population of Burma. And he told the people are manipulating their values for the sake of gaining the political power. Structuralism. Culture Personality School, very interesting. Ruth Benedict, how you ought to remember, police constable, PC. Ruth Benedict, personality influences culture. Margaret Mead, culture influences personality. Ralph Linton, Cora Dubois, and Abram Gardiner. Culture influences personality, vice versa. These two people, Ruth Benedict and Margaret Mead, are the two people who are very famous for the national character studies. How an individual will have a character, similarly the countries also, the cultures also, the societies also, the regions also will have the culture, national character study. How I have a personality, similarly the nation will have the personality. Here nation means it might be a tribe, it might be a society, it might be a region, it might be a group. So here she studied, Ruth Benedict and Margaret both studied the Japanese soldiers, enemy soldiers. Not only Japanese soldiers, they also studied the German soldiers. Why they are ferocious, aggressive. So they understood the character of the nation, the personality of the Japanese people, the personality of the Japan. Because it is replicated, it is reflected in the soldiers. Culture Personality School, Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, Ralph Linton, Gardiner and Cora Dubois. So they did field work. Ruth Benedict did field work. Margaret Mead did field work. Gardiner did field work. Cora Dubois did field work, except Ralph Linton. But he is a person who gave culture universals, culture specialists, culture alternatives. So that individual level you have to study. Yes, here from Culture Personality School, New Evolutionism, whereas in Diffusionism, no need to remember individual level. At school level, if you remember, it's enough. British, German and American, or if school level, if you understand, it's enough. But at Culture Personality School and New Evolutionism, you need to understand from the perspective of the individual level. Everything. Edmund Leach you have to study. Don't leave any single stone unturned. You have to do everything. Everything you have to turn it. Everything you have to do. God and Child, Neo-Evolutionism, God and Child want to tell that. God and Child is a person who told Neolithic age is the revolution because of the invention of food production. How we are harnessing the energy from the environment. How we are harnessing the energy from the environment, the same way we will be evolving. So harnessing of energy is directly proportional to culture. And he also told that how best we are going to exploit the environment, that best we are going to evolve. So you can take the example of Donald Trump. In the Paris Agreement, when the Donald Trump was being asked to sign the climate change agreement, he told, no, I am not going to sign the climate change agreement. Why? Because my country, when compared to China, is coming down with respect to industrial growth and economic growth. If I keep the climate change agreement, if I sign the climate change agreement, I need to be on the binding rules and regulations. So my industrial revolution and my capital, my corporates or my economy will fall down. That means indirectly what he is telling about, indirectly he is telling that means how best his industries are growing. So when the industries will grow, when we are exploiting the environment disproportionately. So he knows that the industrial growth is directly proportional to disproportionate increase in pollution, but he wants his industrial growth rather than the climate change. The climate change aspects. Take the example of Donald Trump. So same thing he told. How best, how best we are going to exploit the environment, that best the evolution is going to happen. That is called as New Evolutionism. So difference between the New Evolutionism and Classical Evolutionism are, Classical Evolutionism are 19th century and these are 20th century schools. These people, Classical Evolutionism believes in only one concept, which is called the psychic unity of mankind. In psychic, man everywhere think in the same way, but here the New Evolutionism, they believe in technological growth, they believe in environment, how we are exploiting the environment, how we are harnessing the energy from the environment will lead to cultural change. New Evolutionism, God-born child, whereas Leslie White, he want to be culture is equal to T into E. How technology is evolving, how energy we are harnessing, the culture is evolving parallelly. Leslie White. Stewart, famous for culture ecology. The culture is nothing but adaptation. How we are adapting to the environment is called as culture. Culture ecology. Culture is nothing but how we are adapting to the changing environments is called as culture. That means he gave higher emphasis to ecology and adaptation. How best we are adapting, that best we will be evolving. Evolution is nothing how we are making our lives easier. How we can make our lives easier? By adaptation. For which we will be using the technology, for which we will be harnessing the energy, for which we will be exploiting the environment. But this people believes that, Gordon Child and Leslie White believes that there is unilinear sequence of evolution, but Gordon Child tells that there is multilinear evolution. Everywhere the culture is not same, everywhere the evolution of culture is not same. A different geography is different form of evolution, another geography different form of evolution. So this evolutionary process is not similar. Multilinear evolution. Whereas service, specific evolution, silence, general evolution. Generally the evolution happens like this. From Australopithecines to Homo erectus to Neanderthal to Homo sapiens. Specific, service. First it was quadrupedal, then it is bipedal, then it is erect posture, then it is cranial capacity. Specifically evolution is happening. Yes, individual anthropologists you have to remember. No need for only for British, German, American, you have to remember the names, but no need to go into the inside of British. For example, in British we have Smith, Perry and WHR Rivers. WHR Rivers is important. Smith, Perry, just you go through it. Whereas coming to German, we have Greibner, Schmid, Leo Frobenius and Franz. Leo Frobenius. Greibner, Schmid, Leo Frobenius, Ratzel. German school of diffusionism. And American school of diffusionism. Kreuber, Franz Boas and Clark Wissler. Clark Wissler not required. Kreuber not required. But Franz Boas is required. But Americans, what is their understanding? What is their contribution? American school of diffusionism, German school of diffusionism, British school of diffusionism. Malnovitsky in detail we have to do. R.C. Brown in detail we have to do. Levi-Strauss, Edmund Leach in detail we have to do. Culture materialism, Marvin Harris, American anthropologist. He want to tell to the world that materials are responsible for cultural change. Materials are the fact. Materials are the objectives which are responsible for the cultural evolution. Culture materialism. In this context, he told there is structure, there is infrastructure, there is structure, there is superstructure. Similarly, there is symbolic and interpretative theories, Turner, Snyder and Keats. What is the difference between the symbols and symbolism? This question I am going to give in the Saturday's test, everyone. What is the difference between the symbols and symbolic? Cognitive theories, Taylor, Conklin and postmodernism. Cognitive theories, what is present in the minds of the people is the real culture. If you want to understand the culture, you have to know what is present in the minds of the people. So minds of the people, what is fixed in the minds of the people is culture. Simple cognitive anthropology. Lot of examples, Koya example, American examples we will be having here. Balinese society example we will be having in symbolic and interpretative theories. Postmodernism, they want to criticize the ethnographies, whether the ethnographies written by the anthropologists are objective or subjective. If it is subjective, then it is null and void. If it is objective, then yes, we can accept it. Why? Because objective means scientific, empirical. So these are the various schools. Classical evolutionism, historical particularism, diffusionism, functionalism, structuralism, culture personality school, new evolution, culture materialism, symbolic and interpretative theories, cognitive theories and postmodernism. 35 to 40 marks. 35 to 40 marks we can expect. 35 to 40 marks we can expect in the final exam. So we will see some previous questions. How did Morgan explain the evolution of marriage, family and socio-political organizations, and how did other evolutionists disagree with his explanation? Means how Fraser disagreed, how Julian Stewart also. Why? Because he told how did other evolutionists. It's not only classical evolutionism, it is also talking about new evolutionism. So the new evolutionists who criticize this model also we have to mention. For example, Julian Stewart. The cultural evolution will not be in a unilinear fashion. No, it will be in multilinear fashion. It is ecology which will be determining the stages of evolution. How did Morgan explain the evolution of marriage, family and socio-political organization, and how did other evolutionists disagreed with this explanation? Yes, there is one table is there, a big table is there of Henry Morgan, the table you have to draw and the criticism of the table. So how the structure should be there? How did Morgan explain the evolution of marriage? First, classical evolutionism, why? Because he belongs to classical evolutionism. Henry Morgan belongs to classical evolutionism school, who believes in psychic unity of mankind and who believes that the evolution is in unilinear sequence of evolution, in which they told the diagram. Marriage diagram, religion diagram, socio-cultural institutions diagram, savagery, barbarism, civilization. Next is criticism, one by one, who all criticized the Henry Morgan's theories. Diffusionists also, evolutionists also, they also criticized evolution, how the culture is getting moved from here to here. So there the evolution is happening. When the culture is diffused from here to there, means there the culture is getting diffused. He didn't consider the concept called as diffusionism. Sometimes diffusionism is also responsible for evolution of culture. Today I am speaking English. English is not part of my culture, but I got diffused it from British. Now English became part of our culture. Diffusionism, not evolution. It didn't evolve here. It got diffused from other part of the world. How do diffusionism and evolutionism differ as explanations of culture change? Evolutionism, psychic unity of mankind, unilinear sequence of evolution. British as a one society, every other society aspires to become. Diffusionism, Egypt as the place of origin of culture, from where the culture is getting diffused. There are culture circles, there are culture areas. That is a major difference between both of them. They give each individual's contribution. Write a table. Yes, evolutionists as well as diffusionists. Point out the differences in the concepts of classical evolutionism and neo-evolutionism in socio-cultural anthropology. Which stage of prehistoric culture is known as cultural evolution and why? Which stage of prehistoric? Which stage? Neolithic. Which stage of prehistoric culture is known as cultural evolution and why? Prehistoric. Because Gordon Child told. He gave 10 lists now. Why we are considering the Neolithic age as revolution? There are 10 stages, there are 10 lists are there. The 10 characteristics are there in the Neolithic age, which tells that yes, because of this 10 characteristics which are invented in this particular in this particular Neolithic age, it is called as beginning of cultural evolution. Mesolithic, lower, upper, middle, there is no cultural evolution. The actual cultural evolution happened in Neolithic evolution. Universal cultural evolution. Universal cultural evolution. Classical evolutionists believes that the evolution happens in stages. The classical evolution believes that the evolution happens in stages. Savagery, barbarism, civilization. Savagery, barbarism, civilization. Universal evolution. Unilinear and which is universal. Gordon Child and Leslie White also universal only. How much technology is evolving, that much culture is evolving. How much we are exploiting the energy, that much evolution is happening. That is also universal evolution. So that universal evolution we have to mention. So you have to mention about universal culture evolution means you have to mention about the classical evolutionism. Why? Because they also believe in universal evolution. And you also mention about Gordon Child and Leslie White. But Julian Stewart is not universal evolution. He told multilinear evolution. Evolution is distinct. Evolution is distinct. Historical particularism. Direct question. 2015, 10 marker. You write like this. Historical particularism given by, in which book, by whom, the premise of historical particularism, and the explanation of historical particularism and the conclusion. Historical particularism, 10 marker. How do diffusionism and evolutionism differ as explanations of culture change? How do diffusionism and evolutionism differ? Difference. What these people will tell, the culture will get diffused. What these people will tell, culture will evolve. Because of what? Because of psychic unity of mankind. Basic tenets of structural functionalism. Structural functionalism, which is there in our notes. Write short notes on functionalism. Direct question. 2016, 2017. Direct questions. Nowadays, if you see from last 3 years, the trend is only 1 word, 2 words questions they are asking. Structural functionalism, 15 marker. Structuralism, 15 marker. Or culture personality school, 20 marker. We have to explain about the total school. Not critically evaluate, not discuss or anything else. 2 marker, 2 words, 1 word. I remember, I think it's 2015 only. Right? 1 word question, horticulture. Question itself, horticulture. Then you have to write about the characteristics of art. First you have to define what is horticulture. Then characteristics of horticulture. Then the tribal people who are practicing horticulture in India and the world. Yanomamis of Brazil. And indigenous. Because of globalization, how their economic systems are getting affected. Why? Because horticulture is economic subsistence. How this economic system is getting affected because of globalization. Current affair you can add. Blood gold. The activists of Yanomamis had appealed to India in the Amazon basin where the gold is available. The displacement of the Yanomamis is happening. And with the displacement of the Yanomamis, the gold miners which are mining, who are mining and getting the gold, they are selling to the India for the sake of making in a fine jewelry. So it appealed to India that don't buy gold from South America. Because the gold which is produced from our blood. So how there is a concept of blood diamond in Sierra Leone of Africa, similarly there is a concept of blood gold in Yanomamis of Brazil. Horticulture, 2015 question it is. Blood gold. What is functionalism? Discuss the functional approach to the understanding of religion. What is functionalism? Discuss the functional approach to the understanding of religion, a emotional satisfaction, a psychological satisfaction, a function which need to be performed by the religion, social cohesion, people are coming together. The myths, rituals which are present in the religion are leading towards the integration of the people. In what way is functionalism different from structural functionalism? Very obvious question this is. Obvious question. In what way is functionalism is different from structural functionalism? I will send you model answer for this into the group. Structural functionalism. See, 2008, only one word, structural functionalism. Describe the structural features of social life as suggested by R.C. Brown in the theory of social structure. R.C. Brown, in his theory of social structure, structural features of social life. Kinship is one of the structural features of social life. Kinship itself is a social structure. Kinship itself is a social structure. It helps in social, political, economical unification of the people. The people will fight against the other group. We are together and they will oppose the other people. A unification will be happening among the people as a social unit. Structuralism, Levi-Strauss. How did R.C. Brown and Levi-Strauss study kinship terms in a social structure? Levi-Strauss, he told elementary structure, kinship is elementary structure. R.C. Brown told that kinship is a corporation. Just expand it. What are the major criticisms of the theory of structuralism as propounded by Claude Levi-Strauss? Criticism of the theory of structuralism as propounded by Claude Levi-Strauss. Culture Personality School. What do you understood by the national character study? Illustrate the concept. Now only we discussed about it. Explain Ruth Benedict's patterns of culture. Discuss the relationship between culture and personality. Critically discuss the contributions of Ruth Benedict to the study of culture. Discuss the contributions of Margaret Mead and Ralph Hinton to the analysis of relationship between the culture and personality. Culture Personality School. Similarly, we will see New Evolutionism also. New Evolution. Gordon Child's theory of cultural evolution. How the evolution happened, how the cultural evolution happened. Explain the theory of total New Evolutionism, 60 marker, 2009. When I was writing, it was 60 marks. What do you understand by the New Evolutionism? Evaluate how Leslie White's approach is helpful in understanding cultural revolution. Cultural revolution. And New Evolutionism, 1997.